I just want to talk to you a little bit today. This won't take long. I don't want to talk to you about driving a stake deeper, nor loving God more. That's not today. That's usually what we hear from this type of podium. It's Thanksgiving week. So just as a quarterback would hand off a little information or hand off the football, that's all I want to do today is just hand you off a little information. And now for today's talk. For over 30 years, Joy Wasson was an English teacher in Muncie, Indiana. She gave her class an assignment to list the 7 wonders of the world. Some listed the pyramids, Taj Mahal, Grand Canyon, and others. One girl had a hard time deciding, so her list was this: to see, to hear, to touch, to taste, to feel, to laugh, and to love. Why gratitude? To see. To see. It has been my privilege to travel over 20 countries. As long as I live, I'll never forget my trip to Israel. If I remember right, President Loper was on this trip. Riding along the hills, I would see Bedouin shepherds attending their flocks. As we peaked the final hill, I was seeing Jerusalem for the first time. A few years ago, I took my daughter Abby to the Philippines. Abby and I looked from the balcony of our room to see the terraces that were carved into the mountains by the ancestors of the indigenous people. So green, so lush, so beautiful. Some consider it a wonder of the world. A number of times I have visited the country of India. I have seen the magnificent ivory white marbled Taj Mahal as it reaches to the heavens. To see, to see, to see. And now, to hear. While fishing in Canada, I've heard a loon. While it wakes up the world as the sound echoes off the rock ledges and water. I've heard the drag of my son Trey's fishing reel as he sets the hook to land a largemouth bass. I've heard music, family harmony, brass, piano, singing. In fact, just yesterday, I heard the high school ministry music team sing at a local church. Beautifully done. I've heard the sound of a babbling creek as it makes its way down the mountainside of a Kentucky valley. I've heard the sound of traffic in Manila as the horns blare and the sound of diesel engines rev up. I've heard the crying of one who was tired of the way they were living and decided it was time to commit all to God. To hear. To hear. To hear. And now, to touch. When David Ditchman retired, he wanted to give back to his community. So he began volunteering at a children's hospital in Atlanta. Just last week, he passed away after a 17-day battle with cancer. He was known as the baby whisperer, or the ICU grandpa. For nearly 20 years, he was a volunteer in the children's intensive care unit. One nurse said he was a very soothing presence to our children. And she never saw a baby cry that was in his arms. I like a firm handshake, a slap on the back. To touch a newborn baby with skin so soft it seems almost invisible. To touch. To touch. To touch. And now, to taste. A couple years ago, I took my daughter Maddie to Dreamland Barbecue in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Barbecue. Listen as the owner tells his story. It all started with a dream. And it was in that dream God visited John Big Daddy Bishop and told him to open a restaurant. Mr. Bishop obliged and opened the original Dreamland in Tuscaloosa, Alabama in 1958. Soon, barbecue lovers from all over the country began dropping by to enjoy Dreamland's iconic ribs, white bread, and barbecue sauce. More than 60 years later, they still do. Our pit masters grill our pork spare ribs over a hickory wood-fired pit and baste them with our signature vinegar-based barbecue sauce. The results: meaty, fully flavored ribs with a distinct pull from the bone. To taste. To taste. To taste. And now to feel. Is there anything more meaningful than someone to say, "I've got your back"? Or to be forgiven? Or to have peace? Or that feeling when you know everything is good between you and the Lord? I have felt God's presence in the stillness of a moment, the strictness of discipline, and uplifting worship with His church. To feel. To feel. To feel. And now to laugh. I was raised in a pastor's home. If you were raised in a farmer's home, the shop talk was what? Farming. If you were raised in the home of a firefighter, firefighter talk. I was raised in a pastor's home, so it was talk about Sunday school, funerals, church. In fact, we played church. I enjoyed playing church. My first seeker was my brother Mark. In fact, I was 8 years old, and my sister was a little older, and Mark was 4, and we went over to the church to play church, and I had asked Michelle to come up to play an invitational song, and I had preached my heart out. Mark was the only one in the congregation. So as she played quietly, and I gave the invitation, Mark came forward. I went down to pray with Mark, and Mark was actually crying. I told my sister, "Michelle, please run to the house, get Mom. This is not the way this is supposed to turn out." When this story happened, the next story I'm going to tell you, I was 13 years old. You know, one thing you would think I would learn about was weddings. I'd been to a number of weddings. Our house was next door to the church, and for whatever reason, I was running later than the rest of my family. They had already gone over, and so I walked across the yard, and I was, at this point, 13 years old, and I walked up the steps and into the lobby of the church. I looked into the church, and it was full, but I wasn't late, and so an usher came over to me. I said, "Where would you like to sit?" Well, it just flashed through my mind. I was still required to sit with my mom. We always sat, as looking from the back of the church, on the left-hand side, third row back. I sat to the outside, my mom, my sister, and then my brother. So I told the usher, I said, I think I better go up and sit with my mom. Then I saw his elbow go to a slight angle. So naturally, I reached out my left hand and put it into the cradle of his elbow. Didn't seem that unusual. I was at a wedding. So naturally, we started walking slowly. As we walked, the laughter in the church started getting louder and louder and louder. Remember, third row. You know where that's at? Nearly at the front. He stopped short of the third row in his politeness. I released my grip. Although firm, I released it quickly and I passed in front of him. Then I had to walk by my brother, my sister, my mom, and I sat down on the end of the pew. I asked my mom, "Why is everyone laughing?" Then I knew. Then I knew. I should have known that. I was raised in a preacher's home. How did I miss it? To laugh. To laugh. To laugh. And now, to love. Who do you love? And who loves you? Who do you love? And who loves you? If you are so privileged to have your parents, tell them often that you love them. If you ever become a parent, the last thought on your mind at the end of the day will be your children. And then when you wake up, the first thoughts will be about your children. I am here today because the love received from my parents. To love. To love. To love. And you ask me, why am I grateful? To see, to hear, to touch, to taste, to feel, to laugh, and to love.
School and college prepares students for lives of ministry wherever God calls them. This content is possible because of the generous support of friends like you. To support GBSC, visit giving.gbs.edu. Thank you.